Okay, so I'm on router A. I've got all my OpenVPN stuff, and it's at etc OpenVPN. Okay, the config file I'm going to use is OpenVPN a2b.conf. This one's a little bit simpler than the one I use in the real world. OpenVPN can run in several modes. If you want one server and multiple clients, you can say this is mode server, and then on all your clients you can do mode client. But I'm just doing mode P2P, which means we're going to have one server on one end and one client on one end. It's one-to-one, it's not one-to-many. We're going to use our tunnel device. This TLS server means that we're going to use all this public key infrastructure that we talked about before, and I've got my certificate files and my key files. And here's what makes the routing all work. I've got this ifconfig command. You might say, why am I putting ifconfig into the OpenVPN configuration file? You know, why not just run OpenVPN and then run ifconfig on the shell command line? Well, ifconfig could be different for different platforms. Like, I have no idea how it works in Windows, but if I put it here in the OpenVPN configuration file, OpenVPN is going to worry about all the cross-platform stuff. So that's why it's here and not, we don't do it manually. This push directive, when the other end of the connection connects to this VPN, it's going to push this option onto the other VPN end. So what am I doing here? I'm configuring our end of the network, our tunnel device, to have the IP 100.0.1. And I'm also saying the other end of that is going to have 0.2. So on the reverse end, I've just reversed that. So that kind of makes sense. And see, at first I had all these IPs in a host file, and I thought it would be easier to work with names instead of numbers. But apparently the OpenVPN configuration file wants these to be IP addresses and not host names. So I've just said that our 100 is our little tiny link network, 10.100.0, and our actual Office networks are going to be 10.11. 11 is for Office A because 11 decimal is A in hexadecimal. So this is basically saying on the A side, create a route. I'm sorry, 10 is A. On the A side, create a route to B, the B network. So we've got our netmask here that's going to route us through the other end of our tunnel device. And on the other side, we just reverse it. On our B network, create a route to the A network through the A side of our little two-host VPN network. So let's just run that. I'm going to have to run it on both sides. You know, in real life, you know, you'll run it under some kind of supervision, either your RC scripts. I like to run all my daemons under run it, but that's a whole other story. So let me go ahead and run it on the A side. I'm just going to run it inside of a screen. This is connecting to B. I'm going to run it inside of a screen so it can go into the background and it won't die. So we just run openvpn-conf, specify the configuration file, and it's openvpn a2b.conf is what I called it. Okay, looks good. Unrecognized options. OpenVPN-conf. Something I haven't seen before. Missing parameter.
I think it's inside the config.
Yeah. Maybe I accidentally added something while I was looking at it. No, that's all good.
It said command line 1, so it was no P2P.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not, it didn't save the file in DOS mode somewhere.
I doubt it. OpenVPN conf openvpn-a2b.com. Oh. Config, not conf. Okay, so OpenVPN spits out a bunch of information. I'm just running it, in the foreground. You can add a daemon switch and it'll fork into the background and log everything to syslog, but I'm just running it all in the foreground. So let me open up another window and I'm going to get onto my router B. That's the router for Office B. 99.0.2. 10.99.0 is like our internet, our untrusted network. Okay. And the configuration file on this Office B is going to be a lot simpler because we're basically storing all the routing information in our Office A configuration file. We could have put it in this Office B, but let's look at it. b2a.conf. So basically all we're saying is connect. This is a host name. I could have put 10.99.0.1. Tunnel device, TLS client. I've got my keys. I really don't need this DH here, but I'll just leave it. And pull. Pull is what tells us to accept all the push options from that other config file. So let me just run this OpenVPN. We'll do it correctly this time. --config. First, let me do it in the screen.
Earlier, you said you had to have the IP addresses.
Yeah.
Now you had.
Yeah. It was complaining when I would put the IP address in the ifconfig directives. It doesn't complain when you put it in the remote. I don't know exactly why that is, but it seems to work fine when you have it in the remote directive. So let's run OpenVPN here. Config. Wait up, I need to run screen. And this is our A connection. OpenVPN.
So you just named the screen A?
Yeah. We're on our B router connecting to A, so I just named the screen A. Usually you might run this in the background some other way, but I'm just putting it in the screen. b2a.conf. Okay. So we can see that it ifconfigured our tunnel device. And if I get out of the screen here, let's look at what happened. I have a tunnel device that's a point-to-point link. All these look right. And I should be able to ping the other side of our link, which is 10.100.0.1, and I sure can. And the whole point of the exercise is usually not to get the routers talking to each other, but it's to get the hosts on the networks to talk to each other. So let's go to one of the hosts and see if the hosts can talk to each other. Hang on. The only way I can get to the host is from the router, so let's go. Or actually, let me do this. Originally, in my example, I was going to connect my laptop to Office A on our virtual machine, but somehow that didn't work, and then I could connect to the host that way. But let me
94?
this is, I'm connecting to the Zen host now, so I can get to the host consoles manually. Root at 10.94.01. Okay, I need to do this. Just ignore all this part.
Network. Yeah, yeah.
All I'm trying to do is get to the host. If I was root.
Yep.
If I knew my root password.
I haven't used aliases in a while. It's handy to have.
Yeah, it's handy when.
I use them all the time.
Yeah. 0.4. And sorry, this just seems like number soup. You know, all these numbers mean something to me, but that's why I wanted to use host names at first, but okay. Okay, let's just get on to one of the hosts. This is host A, and we want to see if host A can talk to host B. So on our host,